Hey guys, Jason here for Chart Guys. Let's take a look at Apple. I haven't looked at Apple in a long time, and I'm going to start with a weekly time frame, and we're going to walk through a few of the smaller time frames to get an idea of what this guy's going to do for us, or possibly offer us in the coming days and hours as far as trading opportunities. So first things first, let's look at the weekly. We can see that we're pretty clearly in a weekly equilibrium. An equilibrium is where we start to get these lower highs and higher lows, and what that does is it sets up a tightening range for us that we can use those key levels from in order to make some trade decisions. So looking at these guys, I've got 4 key levels. I've got 233, 142, 215, and 170.27. So as long as we stay between these lines, that range is going to continue to tighten. And often when you get those tightening ranges tighten considerably, when they finally break, they provide a lot of substantial moves and a lot of really good trading opportunities. So we need to be watching this and be cognizant of when those changes take place. So weekly time frame, what we're looking for is a break at 215.31 and 170.27. It's very likely, in fact, more likely that we will stay inside this nice range for a little while, in which case we keep ratcheting down those lower highs and higher lows until we finally get a break, and it will come eventually. We just need to wait for those trades to come to us. So weekly time frame, let's take a look at what's happening other than that nice EQ. We've got to move to the upside. We've got our nice little green candlestick, and we're having a slower start to the week. This is only one trading day, so we don't really have a lot to say about the current candlestick. But, you know, bulls are in control right now. And as long as we can get a high lower than 215.31, things are going to be looking okay. Break over that. Next resistance is going to be 233.47. RSI is a nice place at 56. Let's take a look at the daily time frame. Nice little trend here I can see popping out at us. So what we're looking for is for us to stay inside this trend. And I'm going to try to give you a little bit better of an idea. There you go. So a nice counter trend, not really even a counter trend. In fact, we are not trending down on the weekly time frame. We are in EQ. So this is us climbing slowly inside that weekly EQ. And here's that blip today, that little oddity dropping down. So as long as we can maintain higher lows and higher highs, we will continue the steady march up to 215.31. Our current higher low is sitting right here at 197.05, so very possible that this guy will come down tomorrow. And as long as we stay above 197.05, then our daily uptrend is going to be intact. And what we will look for is the price to resume its march to the upside and slowly and surely, ideally, get a high over top of the current high of this trend, 205.08. So what we would be looking for on these smaller time frames, let's go to, let's say, the 4 hour, get an idea what's going on there. There's that trend and a little bit more clarity. So here we are coming down to that 197.05 level. Things are looking good. No signs of weakness, a little bit of consolidation and pullback, but that is expected inside a trend. And here we are seeing more of the same and a little bit of a bear flag. Now we start to see some patterns, bear flag, but you know what? This one didn't have any follow through. That tells me that the bears are getting a little bit weaker, and we would expect to see 2, 3, 4 candles maybe before a continuation to the downside. It's that stair step down action. But instead we see bulls and bears pretty much deadlocked here. So I would expect to see, and ideally would see, will be a little bit blip to the downside and then a change in trend. A change in trend would look like a high for the hourly bulls over top of current high, probably this candlestick here, 217. So what we want to see is a high, or a low rather, above 198.41, and then a new high, and start to look for those bulls to get that hourly trend change in place. So 4 hour time frame, things are looking pretty good. Daily, things are looking pretty good. And on the weekly time frame, well, we just need more information. We are up at an area where we would expect to start to see some pullback if indeed this is going to be confirmed as our new lower high. If that happens, instead of getting that hourly trend change for the bulls, what we're going to see is a loss of 198.41, and then we start knocking out some important 4 hour time frames. In this case, 197 psych, and then 195.29. That's what I'm looking for right now on Apple. Not a ton of clarity, but we do get to play those channels, very similar to the Tesla video that I put out in conjunction with this one. Probably the same video if I'm merging them together. So it's interesting how the market grabs these big names and how they're often influenced by each other and the overall market. But it's when those differences arise and we can capitalize on those opportunities that we need to be ready for. And we do that by watching videos like this, by sharing analysis, and by talking and learning and listening and through experience. And that's what we're all about at Chart Guys. And if you're still listening, thank you so much for putting the time into our videos. Happy to make these for you. And I hope to continue into the future. Thank you. Hey guys, Jason for Chart Guys. Turning to take a look at Tesla. I like trading Tesla, and what better way to be a more effective trader than to be more informed and follow the tickers that you really like. So the best way to do that, of course, is to follow it in detail. And whether you're doing it for yourself, for your own trading, or in my case, trying to help my Chart Guys members by just providing a little bit of analysis. Either way, an informed trader is a good trader. So what we're going to do is look at Tesla starting on the weekly time frame. We're going to drill down and see all of the time frames and how those different correlations can be used to our advantage. So the first thing I'm going to look at, weekly time frame for Tesla. We know it's been a rough patch since around November 2018. A lot of downside movement, and we actually broke a major weekly support around 177. We flushed just barely before moving back to the upside. So what I need to do is look at some trend lines, try to find some context for what's happening, and look to determine what action is going to be happening in the short term. So if I go to my weekly trend line and I connect a couple dots here, what we can see is that we've got this nice area of resistance, and we actually came right back up to it here last week. And we are now sitting there with a nice indecision candlestick. Today's 1 day of trading action is not going to give us a lot of clarity here, but that's where we are. If I take my cloning tool, I just try to find something that incorporates most of the information on our chart. Here's our channel. We drop below, get back inside, and now we're dealing with that area of resistance again. So I'm going to focus mostly on this trend line resistance and see what it means for us on the daily time frame. So we have a couple indecision candlesticks here. We're getting close to this area of resistance. So we have our nice green. We've got another basic candlestick. We have a shooting star, which is a reversal. We've got a doji star, which is a sign of indecision. We got a nice spinning top, which is another sign of indecision. And now we have this major area of resistance. So a couple things can happen up here. If we get above it, then we can look for a potential pullback. So you get above, close, come back, test a former resistance as support before moving back to the upside. So it's possible this is happening on a micro level right now by this tiny red blip, but I'd like to see a more substantial break before we see that thing pull back. So all we know is on the weekly time frame, we're at an area of resistance, and for the last 3 weeks, the market has been telling us that it's really indecisive about what it wants to do with Tesla. So we need to be aware of that as we're trading, and can really only rely on clarity on some of the smaller term time frames. So it's either way right now on the weekly. What I'm going to be looking for on the daily time frame is the same idea. I'm going to look for some sort of area of support and resistance and some channels. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the top of my green candlesticks. Actually, I'm going to start down here because the resistance and support, in this case, the support is a lot more clear for us. So I'm going to go delete my weekly candles. Trend line rather, and I like this supporting line, and this is a nice daily uptrend, and I'm going to go and draw that and look at, we got another nice channel that's incorporating most of our trading action. Wicks, of course, we can go up and down outside of this range, not a big deal. The real meat and potatoes is, do we close inside this range? So we're seeing a nice daily uptrend. We have our current high at 241.57, and we're currently coming down ideally to set a higher low above 229.15. So the ideal setup in this situation is for upside continuation. And what we would like to see is for a big bear attack right at the support level. We want to see those hourly bears push and attack and get the price as close to 2.22 as possible before buying the dip and continuing inside this upside channel. So this is the sort of setup that gives us nice opportunities and good oversold bounces. If we know that our daily uptrend is doing well, the weekly, despite being a little bit indecisive, is still strong and is still moving to the upside. If we get that nice bearish attack on an hourly flush, getting us outside that pattern and setting a new higher low to get back inside the pattern, absolutely perfect. Those are the oversold attacks that you really want to capitalize on because all of the trends and timeframes are in your favor. So that's what I would be looking for tomorrow. If we get down and test that level, watching SPY is either going to be breaking its EQ on the daily or looking for new all-time highs. So watch that cautiously as well. On the 4-hour time frame, let's take a look, see if we get any clarity here. A big sell-off of that following July 2nd. So that's setting the range for us. RSI is cooled off at 50, 51, 56. Nothing to write home about here, just playing the channels, and I don't really see anything that I'm going to be jumping on or recommending as a reason to be playing Tesla on the 4-hour time frame. Hourly, it's not offering me a heck of a lot either. I could probably go in here and maybe make a case for a nice descending wedge pattern, but it's going to be a little bit tricky because we just don't have the data to support this sort of move. We've got a couple ranges established here, and what I do in those cases is I go and take my line and I just mark it as things have changed a little bit. I just go and mark it formally as like a dotted dash line. I'm not going to spend time looking around for those tools here today, but that's what we need to keep in mind. So what is Tesla offering us for us right now? The major points of clarity here are on the 4-hour and daily time frames. I'm going to be looking for that hourly move. I'd like to see that flush and get that higher low above 222.22. If we lose that, that means that that 4-hour and in fact the daily trend is going to change because we're no longer setting higher lows, in which case we need to look for more sideways action, and likely that we are going to find that area of resistance on the weekly time frame to be a little bit more important than it appears at this moment. So a lot of talk about channels and price levels. So let's keep watching here and look for potential better setups on that hourly time frame and the 4-hour. Maybe it'll give us a little bit of information as the week progresses, but this is all we have so far. So let's wait for those trades to come to us. And thank you for listening. If you guys like technical analysis, I encourage you to just go out and study as much as you can. I find it fascinating and I love talking about it. And if you have any questions, you can find me at chartguys.com. This is what we do. We love charts.